They have killed over 1,400 people. They have massacred, dismembered, beheaded, raped, and abducted Israelis from Israeli territory. The attack took place on the background of this terrorist organization and a strategic understanding that they are not seeking war, and they were able to breach the barrier with Israel based on this preconception that we had that they're not seeking war. The action that took place was widespread. There were over 20 different locations of breach, including across the fence, the border itself, over the fence with paragliders, and around the fence from the sea, from the coast. And the ambassador will share with you a map for your understanding a bit later on. So they came over the fence, around the fence at sea, and through the fence on the ground. Several hundreds of terrorists breached into Israel. They targeted some 30 communities across the frontiers, including farm communities, including small towns, including communities that are mixed with different people, from different places around Israel, and from different political orientation. I would say that the only common denominator is that everybody was a target. Everybody was fair game. It didn't matter if you were a baby, if you were elderly. All Israelis were targeted on this 7th of October by the enemy. The organization Hamas has utilized all of the tools of government in order to build a terrorist army, including special forces, based on training and the capabilities of Iran, and I say Iranian support, with $100 million per year support of Iran to Hamas and its terrorist infrastructure. And indeed, since the 7th of October, the IDF has been, the Israel Defense Forces has been focused very much on 3 core missions. First of all is restoring security on the border communities. And indeed, we are continuing to see attempts to penetrate the border by Hamas terrorists on one hand, and also we are operating under the understanding that there may still be terrorists, even 19 days later, still hiding out in the areas, in the communities, in the fields, in the surrounding area. The IDF is currently conducting these operations in order to secure the communities and make sure that. And I would say that every time Israel is confronted, the IDF is confronted with a terrorist since the 7th of October, the terrorists always lose. The second component of our military operation is currently restoring and rebuilding the barrier, the physical border area. As I said, they breached it in over 20 different positions, and we are restoring it, rebuilding it, including with physical elements, but also forces on the ground. And the idea behind that is in order to prevent perhaps escape of terrorists that may be still in Israeli territory on one hand, and also prevent easy infiltration for a second wave of terrorists that could potentially try to storm inside of Israel. The third component of our activity is an offensive effort. We are taking the war to Hamas in the territory of Gaza, and I would say that that offensive is focused on 3 levels of their institutions. First of all, the levels of leadership. Hamas runs the Gaza Strip as the government of Gaza. They have utilized all of the tools of government in order to build their military capabilities. And so the mastermind of the massacre of the 7th of October, his name is Yahya Sinwar. He is the prime minister of Gaza. He is the person who planned, gave the green light for the execution, financed the operations, and therefore he is, as the commander and chief of Gaza, he is the top of our target list. But also all of his institutions beneath him the institutions of government, the institutions of the terrorist infrastructure, they all need to be dismantled. And finally, all the way down to the operators themselves, the terrorists that breached into the territory of Israel, and some of them, several hundred, returned to Gaza with hostages that they had taken. So we are currently have been instructed by our government to dismantle Hamas and eradicate the serious ongoing threat it poses. Hamas has, from as we see this today, as I said, they have killed over 1,400 Israelis. Only 308 of those are IDF forces. So the vast majority of their victims are civilian. They have launched and continue to launch today some 7,000 rockets at Israeli civilians, and they pose an ongoing threat to our people. We are determined to dismantle their capabilities, determined to make sure they can never ever utilize the Gaza Strip as a staging ground against us again. We are utilizing our force based on international humanitarian law and the laws of armed conflict. And I would say based on the three principles of distinction between civilians, the civilian population of Gaza. The people of Gaza are not our enemy, so we need to differentiate between them and the Hamas terrorist organization. But also military necessity. So our targets are military targets. And specifically, Hamas has, in principle, positioned all of its assets in the civilian arena, in high-rise buildings, in schools, in mosques, near the UN, near UN facilities. All of their operational capabilities are hidden within the civilian arena, and this, of course, poses a serious threat to the IDF and the ability of us to operate. Nevertheless, we are determined to destroy these capabilities and make sure that they can never ever utilize the Gaza Strip against us again. In order to implement that mission, we have rallied some 300,000 reservists. It's the largest recruitment of reservists in the history of the IDF. And so it is a very significant force. I would add that those forces are positioned both on the border with Gaza Strip, with the potential of a ground operation into Gaza. Currently, our efforts are all focused from the sky, from the air, except for some limited, I'd say, raids that are taking place in and around the border area. But most of the activities up to date are from the air. The 300,000 reservists are for the last 19 days, increased efforts of Hezbollah operating from Lebanon, also trying to draw us away from the south and try and draw us towards the north. It's a huge challenge. We have no interest in going to fight against Hezbollah, in the north. But indeed, there is a chance that that will actually happen in parallel, because Iran is pulling the strings and trying to jeopardize our security situation. Just to frame that and give you some more details about the situation in the north, Hezbollah have fired almost every day now anti-tank guided missiles against forces operating on the border area, but also against civilians. And we have, in order to address that, evacuated all of the civilians from the northern area, evacuating some 30 different communities, evacuating the 25,000 people that live in Kiryat Shmona, the border town in the north of Israel. And this is in order to give us some operational advantages on the ground and not necessarily be drawn into an attack due to unnecessary deaths caused by Hezbollah's operations against us. So there is regional concerns that the war against Hamas in Gaza could spread and could become a more regional conflict. We've seen some attempts from Syria as well, with terrorists launching rocket attacks yesterday from Syria towards northern Israel. And the IDF is currently very much involved in making sure that our presence is known, but also any attack that is originating from the northern areas will be met with force by the IDF, and we will do everything we can in order to destroy and defend our people and destroy the enemy wherever they come from. Our message to Lebanon is please take care of what's happening in your territory. Don't allow terrorists like Hezbollah to utilize Lebanese territory to launch attacks against us. There can be a price to be lost by the state of Lebanon if you don't control what's happening in the south of your country. Our message to Hezbollah is to look very closely how we are destroying and dismantling Hamas in Gaza, and be very cautious of crossing that threshold, because your fate could be a similar fate. Indeed, we are living in very challenging times. The devastation of Israeli communities it scars the souls of all Israelis. The amount of people that have come to reserve duty, like myself, is unbelievable. People feel that the threats that Israelis underwent on the 7th of October is a real threat to all of our society, and that is why society is rallied around the IDF in an expectation that we do change the paradigm. I think the most important message that I have to say to you is that the reality that existed up until the 7th of October, where Hamas can govern the Gaza Strip as a terrorist entity, but then decides to use the Gaza Strip for strategic attack against the Israeli people, is a paradigm that can no longer exist. The Israeli government has decided that this paradigm will no longer exist, that when Hamas breached our perimeter, they broke the rules of the existing game beforehand, and now Israel is reinventing a new game, a new reality, one where Israelis can live in peace, and I would say that one that Palestinians living in Gaza should also be able to live in peace. Unfortunately, the people of Gaza are suffering under the rule of their government of Hamas, who have not done anything in order to safeguard them, but have only done actions that can jeopardize their safety, their security, and their well-being. We are determined to destroy Hamas. We are determined to change the equation and restore safety and security to our people. That is what the government has charged us with, and that is what the people expect from us. I think I want to leave it there and give you time for questions, so that we can take best advantage of this within the next few minutes, as I have to leave in 7 minutes. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much for this brief that you gave. So let's take now questions from the ground. Who wants to be the first one? Byron, please.
Okay. Hello?
Yes,
Hi,
we can hear you.
Sure, thank you very much. The conflict between Israel and Palestine has been going on since around 1948, if I'm not mistaken. And there are suggestions for a two-state settlement. What is your take on that?
I think the ambassador probably has a better answer than me. I am very focused on the conflict at hand, the war that we are facing currently against the specific terrorist organization Hamas. I will refer, perhaps we can. I would prefer and I refer that to the ambassador, who will answer this question after I leave. Thank you.
I wrote to myself. Byron will give you an answer afterwards. If there are questions more related to the operation, to the war, so please feel free to ask.
Okay. Okay. Concerning the conflict, I hear there has been a bombardment of public hospitals and the like. Is there no way to protect civilians during this conflict?
The IDF does not target hospitals. We operate based on three principles of distinction between civilian and non-combatants and terrorists, based on targeting military targets, military necessity, and proportionality in warfare. These three components work together and are symbiotic, and we are constantly weighing them up. We do not target hospitals. That we actually go out of our way to protect hospitals. Indeed, there is a huge challenge because there is rockets being launched from adjacent to hospitals. On the October 17th, one of the Palestinian terrorist organizations the Palestinian Islamic Jihad launched 10 rockets towards Israel, and one of them actually misfired, malfunctioned, and hit a parking lot of a hospital in Gaza, the Al Ahli hospital. However, we found, and despite the accusations circulated on social media and traditional media, that there was no Israeli effort, no Israeli strike. It was these rockets that were fired at Israel, and one of them that actually hit the parking lot of the hospital, causing damage. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? We have a few more minutes.
Do you have a question, Ambassador?
Please.
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to put my hand up.
It's okay.
We hear what Colonel Lerner has to say. He is talking about getting rid of Hamas, which is supported by Iran. What doesn't that mean? To get rid of Hamas is to go to war with Iran as well? Because I don't see how the two, assuming they're as connected as they are, then what is the Iran solution?
That's a very good question. Of course, it's a very broad and strategic question. I would say we are focused currently not at dismantling the idea of Hamas, but dismantling the ability of them to control the territory of Gaza as a staging ground for terrorist activities against Israel. And while Iran is clearly behind the scenes, they have trained, equipped, funded. They give about $100 million a year to Hamas for their activities. The people of Gaza are not benefiting from this huge amount of money, only the terrorist infrastructure. So, of course, while Iran is a regional problem, and I would say a global problem for so many, our role in this conflict is actually to deal specifically with Hamas, as we see, and as I've suggested, destroying and dismantling their capability to govern the Gaza Strip as a staging ground.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last chance to ask Peter before he has to leave. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much, Colonel Peter Lerner, for joining us, and good luck in the good job that you're doing in general. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
So now we're among us. Again, if possible to open, because we did a small press conference in order to be more intimate, and it's a chance for me also to get to know you. If possible to open the cameras, I will appreciate. If it's a problem, we understand. Maybe we can open the mics. We started with a very, with the military side, because his time is more constrained and he had to leave. On a personal note, I want to say that it's really difficult for me to understand, if it's possible from far away from Israel, to understand how big is the crisis for us of the 7th of October. For us, it will be a date that we won't forget. And I think that the world shouldn't forget. It's like the big war. It's like the big genocide. The one that I can relate in Africa, it might be the genocide in Rwanda that happened. Because if we take it in numbers, it's 1,400 people that were butchered and killed and murdered in a very, very brutal way in 8 hours. It's not a long time. It's in 8 hours. This is what they did. And when the colonel is talking about rebuilding the fence and rebuilding the security, they're still in. Only yesterday, last night, 9 terrorists were trying to go to penetrate. They built a tunnel. You have to understand that those are hundreds of millions invested in tunnels, not as shelters for the people, but as shelters for the terrorists, and a mean for them to be able to move around without anyone being able to see them. So yesterday, for example, that was a new tunnel that we discovered, a tunnel from Gaza that went into, the water. They went into the Mediterranean Sea, and 9 terrorist divers were trying to enter Israel from the sea as divers. Now that we're really on alert, of course, they didn't make it, and they're not with us anymore, of course. But they're trying to penetrate all the time. Some of you have spoke before. I don't know whoever of you received some information from our end, and if not, with your permission, we can distribute later. But one of the examples is like an operational booklet that we find the terrorists. Again, I don't know, the colonel didn't mention it, but it's like 1,500 terrorists that entered Israel on these 8 hours. And we don't know if some of them are still here. So, you know, I go to sleep in Tel Aviv. I don't want to wake up and see one in my home, of course. So we have to make sure that they're not with us anymore. So they had an operational booklet with exact instruction, what to do, how to do. It's ISIS. Hamas, it's ISIS. We don't think that they're worse than ISIS. It's their instruction, how to butcher the people, how to rape them, how to do what they did. We also found out that they were carrying chemicals, which is total. All of those things were declared already on this event by Hague International Court of Law as crimes against humanity. That's not war action. Those are crimes against humanity. And this is something that we have to remember and not forget, because I like and I love Zimbabwe, and I think that normal people in Zimbabwe should align with humanity and not with this terrorist organization. And he mentioned it, and I want to make it again clear. It's a war between Israel and the terrorist organization Hamas. It's not a war between Israel and the Palestinian people. And if someone wants to identify with the Palestinian, I think it's better if they will prepare signs that will say, free the Palestinian people from Hamas, because they're suffering from their own people. If I mentioned before that we're building shelters for us to heed, yesterday I got caught, and the offer was almost live with me in a siren when there was a huge missile attack yesterday in the central part of Tel Aviv, of Israel. And I was in Hulon, and you know, I was in my car. I parked my car. I just entered in a building. I went down to the shelter. And when I went out in the street nearby me, there was a piece of a missile. I must admit, first time that I personally see huge piece of a missile that fell after the Iron Dome contacted it. So we are protecting the people. That's why you don't see the number of people that are getting higher on the Israeli side, because we know how to protect us, again, except the surprise that caught us on Saturday. So like mentioned, maybe I have a small presentation if you want, that we can see. I don't know how familiar you are with the area, with the map. Maybe we'll take a few minutes. What do you say? We'll see a map for a second? Yes?
Yep, you're right.
Okay, so like this, all right. So let's put the presentation. Yeah. Okay, you can see that I prepared for you, but we started. First of all, the colonel also mentioned more than 223 people. Until now, only 4 3 old lady and 1 young were released, American citizens, most of them. We have more than 220 people that were kidnapped. You can see from the pictures, we're talking here about women, young people, children, babies, 4-month-old baby. So first of all, we want them back home. This is a crime against humanity. Okay, so if you can see now, this is the Gaza Strip, the Mediterranean Sea. Imagine that on the left side, you know, there is Italy, nice places like Greece and Italy. This is the Gaza Strip. I found out that a lot of people don't realize that the Gaza Strip is bordered with Egypt. So you can see here, in general, we have 3 crossings between the Gaza Strip and Israel. the Erez crossing, you can see it, the Erez crossing in the north, the Kerem Shalom over there, Kerem Shalom in the middle, and there is the Rafiah crossing near Egypt. Both Israel, the Erez and Kerem Shalom were part of the invasion of the Hamas terrorists. So basically, they destroyed, they kidnapped, and they killed the people that were working on those cross borders. So those cross borders are now closed, and if someone to blame, it's of course Hamas. The one with Rafiah, the one in Rafiah, with the Egyptian border, is controlled by Egypt, not by Israel. So at the beginning of the war, Egypt didn't want to open it. It's not depends only on us. After the visit of President Biden from the United States here, it was decided to open the Rafiah junction. It's over there, near the sea, and it was decided that like 20 trucks of humanitarian aid will be able to enter basically on a daily basis with food, water, and medicine. As far as we know, there is no lack. Right now, there is no humanitarian crisis. There is no lack of those of food or medicine or water in Gaza Strip. You can see the little arrows. You can see that they point to the little communities. Again, I want to mention that this area, you asked before, Byron, about the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians from 48. Anyway, all this area, it's not questionable. This is Israel within the lines of 1948. So it's not a questionable area. Those were peaceful villages, most of them habitants that are even, we can say, center-left voters that are pro-peace, that were active in peace movements. Some of them are now kidnapped and are in Gaza. The terrorists didn't distinguish. They also killed, foreigners. They killed Nepalese that works in Israel, Thailandese. And you can be sure that they don't look like us. It wasn't difficult to know that they're not Israelis. So they just kill for killing. It's really a pure evil that I can't even. I apologize if I will start crying, but it's something we can't even imagine. So you see it's little villages, kibbutzim, agricultural villages. When people are coming to Israel to study agriculture, a lot of them go to this desert area to learn how we do it without water, and we're willing to share this knowledge. And they just enter at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and butchered people in their houses, put them and burn them in their houses. I can't even imagine, we don't know exactly how many people were killed because it's almost impossible to identify what was left from the people. They're in such condition, totally burned bodies, that it's almost impossible to identify. You can see here, this is a map of Israel. You see on the northern side that Syria. On the northern side, we're bordered with Lebanon. This is the area that we're in trouble with Hamas. We don't want a third frontier with Syria on the right side, the Golan Heights. Israel is very small compared to Zimbabwe. From north to south, you can go in 4 or 5 hours drive. And from east to west, from the Mediterranean Sea to the border with Jordan, in less than 2 hours. It's a very small and narrow country. So when we're talking about the possibility that you mentioned of, and I will get back to it, of two-state solution, you have to keep in mind that it's a very small area. Again, on the left side, you can see the Gaza Strip bordering with Egypt, and the infiltration area in yellow. You can understand comparison in the size of the country, how big is the area that the terrorists got in. The part that is in red, and you see that it goes above Tel Aviv, this is the range of the missiles that are targeting on Israel. As mentioned, it's almost 8,000, probably by today, it will be 8,000 missiles that were shot to Israel in a time frame of 2.5 weeks. And you can see a number, 550 misfires. Those are the missiles that they don't succeed shooting them to Israel, and they fall in the Gaza Strip. This is, for example, you asked the question about the hospital. Everyone now, even the BBC, that it was very difficult for them to admit that it wasn't Israel that hit the hospital. Everyone now knows that it was a Jihad Islamic, another terrorist organization, missile targeting Israel that didn't succeed and fell on the parking lot of the hospital. By the way, it fell on the parking lot of the hospital. You can see from the pictures, I'm sure you saw there wasn't a lot of damage, a few cars that were burned. For sure, no 500 people were killed. If they were killed, again, it's by the Jihad, Islamic Jihad, but for sure, not 500 people were killed by this. I'm sorry if even 5 Palestinians innocent were killed, of course, but this is just to say that when we hear information coming from the Palestinian health ministry, you have to understand that it's a Hamas health ministry, and people who butcher babies, I don't think we can believe them when they're talking about numbers or what happened. So you can see the numbers, more than 1,400 people, Israelis, were killed. As mentioned, most of them young people. They targeted young people, children, babies, women, and of course also men and some soldiers, and a lot of injured that we have. You can see that those are the people from more than 40 different countries that were killed or murdered. American, but also I think they are from Tanzania, people that we don't know yet what happened for them, Philippines, Lithuania. You can see almost on the flags, lucky us, no Zimbabwean, Italian, French people, Canadian, Australian. You can see here what is the goal of Hamas. Hamas and ISIS is the same. On the right side, you can see a flag of ISIS that was found in Israel after the Hamas invasion. So they brought with them ISIS. In a lot of countries, it's illegal. You cannot hold this flag. And we're saying that Hamas is ISIS. You can read yourself what they're urging. You can see on October 11, Khaled Mashal is the former Hamas chief. And his call actually to continue what they're doing. So if we want to protect, and it's the duty, I'm telling you as a citizen, not as an ambassador. I mean, now in Israel, it's the duty of my government to protect us. It's their duty. If we won't do what we're doing now, and again, as mentioned, we're doing everything according to the Geneva Convention, to the international law of war, and we're trying not to harm civilians. If we won't do it, they will come and kill us. So between the two options, I think you can understand which one we're choosing. You didn't ask yet, but I assume you know there were calls and criticizing in the media about us calling the Palestinians from the northern part of Gaza Strip, that's to evacuate and go to the southern part of Gaza. This is why we know that the terrorists are mainly concentrated in the northern part and in Gaza city itself. And because we do not want to harm the innocent civilians, we ask them to move to the south, so we will be able to destroy the terrorists without harming the Palestinian people. Exactly the same like we ask our people. All the communities along the border with Gaza and in the north with Hezbollah have been removed, and were asked to move away from this area to safe areas so they won't get hurt in both sides, no Israeli, no Palestinians. In the picture you can see, in the picture here, you can see that we're calling them to move, but you can see here, you see the trucks here, blocking the road. Those are Hamas actually preventing the Palestinians from the north to move to the south. They're doing it because they want to continue and use the Palestinian as human shields. Basically, Hamas is doing here a double crime against humanity. The first one is that they're attacking us, Israeli civilians, and the second one is that they're preventing them from passing to the south and asking and actually forcing them to stay and protect the terrorists. So according to the law of war, we are of course allowed to target only military targets or people, but if they hide between civilians, or we have a lot of pictures that you can see that they're actually dressed like me and you, but they're putting RPGs and they're putting missiles to throw. So are they military or, and then when they killed, you know, they said that they were civilians. So you can hear here, I won't put it now, but we can understand that they're moving, they don't let them move, and they're basically forcing them to stay here, which is dangerous. We prefer that they will go temporarily, of course. It's not a evacuation forever. Here it's just a glimpse on the north. Here is Lebanon, Syria. This is the area between Israel and Syria. The UN is sitting here. This is the Golan Heights in Israel. But you see all these red dots? It's attacks by Hezbollah in the last 2 weeks. They're trying all the time rockets. I have a family living here on the border. And again, this area, back to the question of the two states, this area is not under dispute. It's Israel within the lines of 1948. It's not an area under dispute. My family had to move away from their small village, Iftach, a very peaceful place, and to go and find the heat, and they're hiding here because we don't want anything to get. You can see that they have a UAV crossing. They're trying all the time to hit the cameras, to hit the fence, to penetrate. And we're all the time telling them, stop. And we're telling the Lebanese, we don't want war with Lebanon. We don't want, let's move on. Here again, a glimpse for your eyes to see. This is the Hamas actual invasion to Israel. And this is what Hezbollah is planning to do. This is, if we want it back in Hezbollah, this is what will happen. Okay, and remember again, it's Israel within the 1948 border. Okay, I will go out for a second from the presentation, and it's in. Okay. You're still with me, thank you. So, you know, this is the situation. Not an easy one. Brian, Brian still with us? Yes, Byron, sorry. So yes, the conflict started even before. In 1947, the UN, you know, first of all, there was the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were killed, and we feel that now this is what Hamas is doing. They killed Jews because we're Jews. Not Jewish people, not because anything else. And after the war finished at 45, and in November of 47, it was a UN resolution that said, okay, and we have to remember, there was no Palestine state before. We were like you, under the British mandate. This area was controlled by England. People drove here on the other side. We moved back to the other side, but it was under British control. There was no Palestinian state. There were people who lived here. Jewish, Muslims, Christian, everyone. People lived here. There were about 600,000 Jews, and the United Nations decided, it calls the partition plan, to divide the area. And you saw it's a very small area. Decided to divide the area and to create two states, an Arab state and a Jewish state. You know, our first prime minister, back then he wasn't yet a prime minister, but he was leading the Jewish community, David Ben-Gurion, was under a lot of pressure because a lot of people didn't like the idea to have half of this little place. They wanted more. But he was a very wise man. And he said, if we want to live and we want to stay in this area, we have to accept the UN resolution. And the UN resolution was accepted by us. The people who rejected it was the Arab. The Palestinian people, the Arab community rejected it. And it wasn't the first time that they missed the opportunity to have peace. And they decided to declare war upon Israel. And one was started upon Israel not only by the Palestinian or the Arab people. Again, there was no Palestinian state, by the Arabs who were living here. By the way, my father, seventh generation, he should have been the seventh generation in what was back then the Palestine under the British control. He himself was born in Lebanon. He cannot go and live in Lebanon anymore, of course. So they started a war with 5 Arab countries that surround us. You saw a few of them like Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. So we had to fight all this and we won. They didn't believe that we will win, so I'm sure that now we will win as well. And we won. And the state of Israel was created 75 years ago in 1948. And since then, there were other wars. There was the 6-Day Wars in 1967, again, was forced upon us, the Yom Kippur War, and then we gained other territories like the Golan Heights that you saw that are bordered with Syria, and what we call the territories, which is Judea and Samaria, in the center of the heart of this area, and the Gaza Strip. And as you probably remember, in 77, Sadat understood that they won't win by war after the 73 war, and we signed a peace agreement with Egypt, and Egypt got the whole Sinai Desert back. By the way, during this peace negotiation, it was offered to them to annex Gaza Strip to Egypt. Was it more logical? There are Arabs. They refused to take it because they knew it's a very challenging area. So, and Jordan didn't want to actually put the Palestinian from Judea and Samaria really under Jordanian part of Jordan. This could have been resolved because sometimes, I know also you were under British and you were divided between Zambia and, sometimes you have to look forward and not only backward. This is what we were trying to do, to move forward. And as a result of all those wars, that was the situation. Then, 1993, we signed the peace accords with the PLO that killed us and murdered us. And Rabin, the late Prime Minister Rabin, signed the peace accord with Arafat that had blood on his hands, because unfortunately, peace we should do, with our enemies that butchered us. And unfortunately, a few years later, they started again with terror attacks because it wasn't enough. In 2005, this I have to make sure that you get it, because in 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza. Israel is not in Gaza. Gaza is under the control of Hamas. Hamas won the elections in 2007, and I'm very surprised when the Palestinian ambassador in Harare want to march or to sympathize with the Hamas. Because if he himself will go to Gaza, I don't want to think what will happen to him, because there is basically disagreement between the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria and Hamas, who won the election in 2007. And all they tried to make a unity government or something, they didn't succeed. Hamas is 100% controlling the Gaza Strip. Hamas, the Palestinian people, poor Palestinian people in Gaza Strip are under Hamas terrifying regime. Again, hundreds of millions of dollars that are getting as foreign aid to the territory, to Gaza, are not arriving to the people. They only using, just think about it, 8,000 missiles. How much money is it? How much fuel you need in order to cry that they don't have fuel? Stop launching missiles and you'll have fuel. In Hamas stole from UNRWA, from the UN organization, 24,000 liters of gas. With 2,400,000 liters, you can operate 6 days the desalination plants that they have for water. 6 days. They shouldn't have lack of water in Gaza. It's all Hamas responsibility. And when it's really, I don't know how to say, I don't know how they live there under this. So this is where we stand. If we will be able, after we will finish with Hamas and the dust will fall, and I hope that the 2 million people in Gaza Strip will say to the Hamas, enough is enough, and they will extradite the terrorists to be punished for the war crimes that they're doing. And they will give up all the weapons that they have. And maybe international inspectors will be able to enter to the territory and handle it for a few years. Something similar that was done maybe after World War II with Japan and Germany, if you recall, that for a few years, in order to change this horrendous mindset of killing, I don't think that any of you can understand how their mind is operating. I can for sure. Normal person cannot understand how they operate. So after all this will be done, I hope we will be able to go back to the negotiation table and to sit and think. But again, you have to remember, Israel is not in Gaza, and we're not responsible for Gaza. We're not responsible, we're not there. It's different from the territories, from Judea and Samaria. It's a different situation. Gaza, we're not there. It's almost 20 years, from 2005. We went out. We left them greenhouses. We left them the villages. We left them the houses. We left them the irrigation system, famous irrigation systems. They destroyed everything. International aid that is coming, pipes of water that were giving to them in order to have more water. You have films that shows how they take them out and they use them in order, because a pipe, if it's from metal, they use it to build missiles. So it's a mindset that we really cannot understand. And I don't know, again, people have to choose side and to choose the side of humanity. I don't know if we didn't answer, we answered the question. If you have questions for me, please feel free. Ofer, you want to ask something or to add something?
No, we're just trying to address someone that have a question.
If you have time, I can show you. I don't know if you saw a short film about 10 people that were kidnapped, a lady by the name of Shoshana Haran. It's a short film, very short, that her son did, asking for her release. She was kidnapped with 9 people. She used to work in Africa to bring good things to Africa. So if you allow me, we would like to see this film. Meanwhile, think if you have questions.
Ambassador, some
Yes,
of
please.
the information that we've been receiving was that this attack on the 7th of October had already been, there was intel from Egypt that was informing Israel ahead of 7 October. Is that correct or not? And I say so because this whole situation seems to me like we have Pearl Harbor once again. Could it have been avoided if that intel was available before the attack?
I heard these rumors as well. All those things are being investigated. So I can't tell you now if it's correct, if it's 100% correct, if there was something small, but no one could believe. No, you have to understand, I saw pictures of the arsenal of weapons that they enter, RPGs, a chemical weapon. It's something that no one could think. Again, I assume it's a failure, but I'm not the one now to make this investigation. Right now, we have to emphasize in stabilizing the area, make sure that people are safe in their own homes and countries. And I assume that after every war, after every event that we have, there is an investigation done. At the end, we are a democratic country. There will be an investigation about what led to it, how it happened. But I think now it's a little bit premature to get into those details, because also the morale of our soldiers that have to fight, like was mentioned, 300,000 reserved. I can tell you that my nephews were called. There is not one house in Israel that they don't have people in reserve. It's not a professional military, what we have. It's the people military. It's us that are going to, you see, I have this, which means that I'm doing duties in one of the army bases in order for me to get in. All of us are being called, we're on duty. So it's us, it's not professionals. And if a soldier is being killed, it's not a professional person who gets money for it. It's us, it's our sons, daughters. We have a lot of women now in combat units, and we have females that were kidnapped, raped, butchered. Again, I'm repeating it because it's difficult for us to understand. One of the horrible descriptions, it's of a pregnant lady, that they opened her belly and they stabbed and they killed her baby and they cut her breast. For you to understand, what's the point? What's the point in doing something like that? It's not something that any person can even think about. It's like, I don't want to start really crying, but it's terrible. And this is just one example. It's just one example of things that happened. So it's a little bit premature now to start the investigation, who's to blame in Israel. We are very united. You have to see the people. This is the nice part to see. You know, when people ask me, what is the strength of Israel? And I spoke yesterday with a group of students from Zambia that are in Israel. Were giving the opportunity to go back to Zambia and they chose to stay. They're in the Negev, in the safe place. It's an area that wasn't hit by this event, and they even don't hear sirens that I hear in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And I'm telling them, you know, that it's our resilience. It's the fact that we can be together now. You have to see how people are going to help and work in the villages to pick up tomatoes and to help to milk the cows, because a lot of people went in the military service. This united emotion that we can show, this is the important, and this is what will help us to overcome it, because this is a real crisis of confidence in our country, confidence in our military, in our government. It is a crisis, but we're overcoming it. We have no choice. Otherwise, I won't be here to speak with you because I will be butchered and thrown to the sea. It's not just saying it, it happens. So we have to. Any questions? Yes, Ofer?
With your permission, I just want to, although you gave a very detailed answer, but just to make sure that Byron and everybody else knows that Israel would have peace with all the neighboring countries if they wanted peace a long time ago. The two-state solution was rejected by the Palestinians many times. It's very simple. Anybody that wants peace, if you know, I'm sure that you heard it before, Ofra. It's very simple. If the Palestinians will put the weapons down, there will be peace immediately. If Israel will put its weapons down, there will be no Israel. That's the bottom line of it.
Thank you for the clarification. And I think that now that we have peace with Egypt, Jordan, Bahrain, Morocco, the Emirates, it proves that peace can be done between Arabs and us and Israel. And what Ofer mentioned in a very bright way, thank you, Ofer, it's true. If we won't have the weapon, we won't exist. Let's see for a second the film about Shoshana Ran. I feel that it's my duty. Someone maybe wrote a question in the chat or something. I can't read it, but we will try in a second.
Hello.
Yeah, let's see the film for a second, and then we'll go for the... אחר כך באמת נראה להם גם את גדי. And so I'm sure you moved, we'll speak about it. I want to take a chance also to show you this picture. It was taken a year and a half ago in Nir Oz, one of the villages that were hit the most. You know, they put a sign that in 7th of October in the morning, there were 490 inhabitants in Nir Oz, and on the 8th, there were only 190. They kidnapped, they killed, they butchered whole families. This gentleman, Gadi, Gadi Moses, we had here a delegation of senior agricultural people from a few African countries last March. I had a group also from Zambia coming. You can see us on the top with Gadi. And he took us also to his home. He took us to see in the kibbutz in Nir Oz. You see, this is called Migunit. This is a little shelter against bomb, not against the terrorists that are coming. What they did, people were taking shelter in this small shelter, and they throw grenades inside and kill them inside, and then they burn them. Gadi, I know Shoshan, of course, and I know Gadi. We don't know exactly what happened to him. We think that he was kidnapped. Yesterday, his wife was identified as dead. Her daughter and two little children we don't know if they're kidnapped or they are dead, and we just didn't identify them yet. We're praying for them. Those are people that did good for Africa, and they're now either dead or kidnapped in Gaza Strip. So I want to bring those little films so you can relate to people, you know, to a specific person, because talking about 1,500 or 223 kidnapped people, it's general. But when you see a face of a person, I have another small short film, if we'll have time, about the head of one of the councils, the community councils there, a person by the name of Ophir Liebstein, that he only was trying to do peace with the Palestinians. He was creating programs with them. He was creating agricultural programs with them, energy programs with them, and they murdered him. So it's difficult. We would like to have peace. We're really not seeking war. We don't want this. Byron, you wanted to ask another question?
Thank you. If, say, the UN called for a peace meeting today with Israel and Palestine, are you willing to come to the table to discuss and end this conflict?
Again, you're using again and again the word Palestine. I'm sorry to say, it's not with the Palestinian people. It's with the Hamas. Hamas is a terror organization. When ISIS was working or Al-Qaeda was working, can you imagine that the UN will call to bring Al-Qaeda or ISIS to the table to discuss now peace negotiation? Again, we're not talking about the Palestinian here. And if the Palestinians are telling you this, they're misleading you. We're talking about a Hamas terror organization that, as I mentioned, Can you show them, please, the missile that almost hit me yesterday? Yesterday, in the area of Tel Aviv. And again, only thanks to the Iron Dome, it didn't. You see this missile? I took the picture. I was standing next to it. After I went out of the shelter, of course, okay? This is a piece of it because the Iron Dome hit the missile. So this, I took the picture myself yesterday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So we can't go to the table with people that are still trying to kill us. It's not an option, Byron. I wish it was an option. Like I mentioned, they want to talk peace. Please, 223 kidnapped people with no conditions. Bring them back home now. I can show you the faces again. Bring them back home now with no conditions. One. Second, extradite all the Hamas terrorist organization. We're willing to sit with Abu Mazen. He's sitting in Ramallah, safe. You know, don't give asylum to the heads of Hamas who are living in a very nice hotels in Qatar, in Turkey, in different countries. Don't. Condemn Hamas. I didn't hear Zimbabwe condemning Hamas or the terror attacks on the 7th of October. Not your president, not your foreign minister. Please, ask them, condemn Hamas and this barbaric attack. Put designations on Hamas people so they won't be able to move around. They have to be outlawed. We're not talking about Palestine, we're not talking about Palestinian. We have to make clear, it's Hamas terrorist organization. Think about ISIS, think about Al-Qaeda. This is who we're dealing with. Do you think that someone who butchered the pregnant women would sit with me to the table? You know that the Palestinian, I met the ambassador in Angola in a conference. He hardly wanted to speak with me. And I told him, you know, we're diplomats. This is our work. We have to speak among us. He wasn't even willing to speak with me. The same with the Palestinian ambassador in Zambia. We're willing to speak with the Palestinian, not with the Hamas organization. That's a no-go. They're killing us. You can? I've never heard about a country that speak with someone who is firing on them right now. They can just stop firing. Show us that they're serious. Stop firing missiles. Stop penetrating to Israel. As I mentioned, as we speak today, missiles are coming from Lebanon, from the Hezbollah. Missiles are coming from Gaza Strip. They're trying to penetrate again and again. They're not giving up. And when they come, they butcher. Please. Thank you, Yvonne. I think it's a very nice question. First of all, we would like to know that you're checking facts before you publish. We want to have a fair coverage of what is happening. I was really glad that some of you approached me directly after they heard the Palestinians or they heard things on the news and they wanted to check the facts. I really was happy to get those phone calls or WhatsApp because I think this is a real media person, journalist. This is what they should do. Learn to know the facts and question them. Again, because for example, what happened with the hospital, 2 minutes later, immediately the Hamas said that it was an Israeli missile and 500 people are dead. How can you say it in 2 minutes? It's not possible. Technically, it's not logical. It's not possible. It took us a time, and in this time, of course, all the news was against us. Instead of saying, 1 second, let's check it. Let's see what are the facts. And during wartime, sometimes it's difficult, I agree, to know the facts. But we are trying to bring out only verified information and factual, and then you can make your decisions. You know, we're not telling you what to think about the event, but we're saying that it's a very complicated conflict. And in this case, again, it was a terrible terror attack. You know, if I will compare it to the size of Zimbabwe, in these 8 hours, we're about 9 million people. I think you're double than us. So think about it, that in 8 hours, almost 3,000 Zimbabwean will be butchered by someone, and more than almost 500 will be kidnapped. Kids, again, I'm reminding you, it's women, children, babies will be kidnapped, and about 10,000 will be injured. Those are the numbers. So this event is really different from anything else that ever happened in the contemporary modern history of the state of Israel. When people are telling me, but you're used to it, no, sorry, we're not used to it. Yeah, we had, you know, rounds, we had missiles. Never people were butchered like this. Never. 1,400. So my call for the community is, first of all, to check the facts, to check the balances, to take side with humanity for one time. Take side with humanity. We're not the aggressors here, we're the victims here. And push the other side, push your government to condemn Hamas. It's not possible that governments are not condemning this act of terror. On more and less than that was condemnation all over the world. I can't understand the country that didn't condemn this act, really, seriously. And if you meet the Palestinian representative, ask him why Hamas is doing this, why Hamas is using their own people as human shields, why Hamas is investing. They could have been like Singapore or Hong Kong or Taiwan, you know, heaven in the Middle East with a beautiful beach. Believe me, I'm not young. I've been taking bath in the beach in Gaza before the first Intifada in the 80s. It's a beautiful area. Why they invest money in missiles and in weapons and not in the people, not in the industry? Our late president was trying to build an industrial zone on the border between Israel and Gaza in order for the Palestinians to work. You know that before the 7th of October, 20,000 Gaza people were entering Israel on a daily basis to work in Israel? Of course this was cut. Ophir Lipstein, the head of this council that was murdered, he was trying to arrange again a zone. Why? They kill every opportunity or every chance to do peace. Why? Ask them these questions. Why? Why not to invest in the people? Why to invest in the military? There were so many initiatives to bring people together, to create job opportunities, 20,000 permits from employees from Gaza to come and work in Israel. We don't know who of them was the one that gave all the information about the villages, exactly where are the houses, where to penetrate. And I don't want to suspect them. I really, truly think that those people came to work and to bring bread to their houses. And this is what should be done, but it's not us. It's so I really call for the community, for you to one time to take side with humanity. This is the right thing to do right now. And again, you know, we didn't believe when someone tells you that they want to kill you. Apparently, next time we should believe them. And not to think that if we will be nice and we'll give them economic benefits and we'll give them, you know, Israel is not responsible for Gaza. We don't have to give them water. We don't have to give them electricity. We don't have to do those things. We do it because we do care about them. And by the way, when they're talking about humanitarian aid, at the end, thanks to the water desalination plant and wells and stuff, it's only 10% of the water coming from Israel. By the way, they hit the pipe. There are 3 pipes. It's the Hamas missiles that hit the pipe that brings water from Israel to Gaza. What shall we do? They hit the electricity port. 50% of electricity comes from Israel. The rest is coming from more generators or solar panels. But 9 of those lines were hit by their missiles. So what are we supposed to do now? To put our people at risk to work under missiles and attacks to fix the pipe, the lines that brings electricity to Gaza? I think that you can answer those questions, it's rhetoric questions. No one will put their people now in danger to fix it for them. And again, all complaints has to be appointed to Hamas. If the Palestinian is saying to you, why, no, excuse me, why Hamas is investing, I'm trying to find out the figure, the exact figure of how many hundreds of millions of dollars is all this operation of building those tunnels that are over there, probably they're hiding right now are kidnapped people and they're hiding themselves. How much does it cost? You know how many hospitals and schools they could have built with this? And now it's things that are, a lot of them are donations from the international world. So maybe we ask the international world to think twice about what they're donating or how they're donating, and to make sure that the donation arrives to the people and not to Hamas. Also now, we're trying to make sure that those trucks that are getting in with the humanitarian aid are going to the people. Hard for us to be sure that this is really what happens. It's complicated. I think, Cohen, you wanted to ask something, please.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. I don't know, my question is a little bit off the topic we are discussing about. If you can allow me to ask the question, please. But it's to do with the war.
With
the situation in Israel today, the war.
Of course. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. In biblical times, Israel fought its battles not with weapons only, but also with the support of the Ark of the Covenant. That's what we read in the Torah and the Bible. Now, I'm quite aware that there's no temple standing in Israel today, and the Ark is nowhere to be found in Israel. But is there any alternatives which are in place to assist this war spiritually?
Thank you. This is a very interesting question. Of course, as I mentioned before, the resilience of the Israeli people, everyone has his own, choice and beliefs. We don't have the temple now because it was destroyed, because we had war, all the time people were trying to destroy us. But we have, the synagogues, people are praying, people are having their beliefs. We have community gatherings, and a lot of support that is given to the communities by professionals. It can be either rabbinical, religious support for the people who wants the rabbinical, and again, by the way, it's not only the Jewish. We have Muslims that were killed and kidnapped, and Christians that were killed and kidnapped. So it's all religion. It's not only Jewish. Of course, it's a Jewish state, so the majority are Jews. But what we have also, of course, it's a very strong community support by social workers and psychologists that are giving help. I must say that the communities that were hit, those 30 communities along the border, were evacuated, of course, and we try to put them all together in the same hotel or in the same another community, so they can be all together. They're treated, the kids are treated. I don't know, it will take a long time to overcome such a trauma. I think people are still in the trauma. It's not post-trauma yet, even, and it will take time, but with professional help and spiritual support, I assume that we will overcome it. So I think with this interesting question and the spiritual blessing, I would like really to thank again Ofer for helping me to arrange the press conference, to thank each and every one of you who came. Feel free to contact me or Ofer to get more information. If you get information and you're not sure that it's balanced or it's accurate, feel free to be in touch with us. One thing I can promise you, if we don't know, I will tell you. If I'm not sure, I will say so. And the information that you will get from us will be facts and accurate. This I can always promise you. And I hope to meet you in person in Zimbabwe.
Mm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Bye-bye.